That isn't the edge of the track.
No.
This is the edge of the track with the tyre. It's kind of like the football on the line. Was it a goal or wasn't it? You mentioned the width of the car, but what car? And how does that differ depending on the type of corner we're on?
We are going to use bollards. We will use some tyre pads. The wall is the best thing to control the track limit. An automatic camera system.
When a pixel is detected with a movement, then we have an alert.
Your vision changes from looking at the line to looking at the gravel.
We have 80% less track limits in these corners.
I am very good in track limit. I can do a lot.
But ultimately, if you abuse track limit, you'll get a penalty.
So we're here today to talk about everyone's favourite topic, track limits.
The track limit is a nightmare.
Obviously the drivers are pushing to the limit, and on occasion that means they're pushing to the limit of the track because that's where they find the performance.
I am very good in track limit. I can do a lot.
And to join me, I have Benoit. Thanks for joining us here from the FIA. So first of all, Benoit, just explain what are track limits and why do we have them?
There are two aspects very important about track limits, and the first one is sporting fairness. I think it's the one that everybody will think about when they talk about track limits. Of course, if you don't respect track limit, you will go faster and get an advantage over those who respect track limit. So it's important to police it. For another reason, which is also important for us at the FIA, it's safety. Because the track and all the safety around this corner has been homologated for a certain speed, and if you go over the track limit, you get more speed, and then you are at risk from a safety standpoint.
So it's down to us to basically enforce that track limit consistently and fairly. Now that's quite difficult when you've got a car passing at upwards of 200 kilometers an hour, dancing around over the curbs, trying to maximise or minimise their lap time.
We're standing here on the exit of the two Ravazzas, a fantastic part of the track here in Imola, an old school race track surrounded by grass and banked corners, natural elevation, and therefore a natural deterrent for drivers. But on this particular corner, we have seen in the past track limits violations, and it's been modified over the years that have gone by. We've got a gravel trap now behind us, we can see, and that's slowly crept its way towards the track.
We've seen over the past 20, 30 years the circuits adding more and more asphalted runoff area for operative reason, but it created a lot of problems with track limits, and it's true that, as you were saying, natural deterrent is the best way to prevent the driver from doing track limits. So what we do is we tend to have the white line, the famous white line that we police, which is part of the track, so at least a part of the tires of the car needs to stay on this white line, and that's why we brought the gravel bed closer at the car width to make sure that if they are fully on the curb, they still have part of the tires on this famous white line.
So here is the white line. Right, let's get into the details then. If we just get down and have a closer look at this. So that isn't the edge of the track.
No.
This is the edge of the track.
As soon as we see, for example, here in this case, a bit of green between the tire and the line, then we'll judge it out.
In Formula One, we have a blue line often painted here. Is that so that they can see more clearly then?
Exactly, it's for the judges to be able to get the exact position of the tire.
So Benoit, you mentioned that the track accommodates different cars, of course. You mentioned the width of the car, but what car? And how does that differ depending on the type of corner we're on?
Well, we're talking about a generic width, which the width of the curbs corresponds to. And lately we've brought some gravel strip, just a strip, not a full gravel bed, closer to the track at a car width. It's been done in Austria, it's been done in Qatar as well. And I know on the WEC race, for example, from one year to the other, with the addition of these gravel strips, we had 80% less track limits in these corners.
From a driver's point of view, what people sometimes forget is that when you're turned in direction to face exiting this corner, when you're in the car, you're actually looking to the outside, not the inside white line anymore. And particularly with WEC, with the covered wheels, makes it even harder to see where your left front tyre would be. So your vision changes from looking at the line to looking at the gravel. And at that point, that's when the gravel here at the exit of the curb is vital and makes such a positive impact for the driver, because now you're looking to the exit, the proper exit is easier to see. than looking back to the inside of the corner. But if they do go over this white line, because I think sometimes you just see a car, particularly Formula One, they've got such high downforce that they can actually still maintain a high level of grip, or a high enough level of grip, with some tyres on the gravel, because the car's so pushed down onto the ground. If you get to that situation, how do you police it now? What technology do you have at your disposal?
Depending on the championship, of course, from entry-level championship, we will have some marshals that we call the judges of fact, that will be strategically placed to make sure that they have a good vision of the tires and the left-hand side tires of the car. But for other championship with a bit more technology, such as Formula One, WEC or Formula E, we are using a TV system that will take a picture of all the cars that are detected in the wrong area.
There is a detection zone. When a pixel is detected with a movement, then we have an alert. We can see if the car is off or in track. I have all the alerts on. I have the car number, the time of day, I have the timing of the microsector, the sector. We have also the GPS data. I can also double check with the CCTV cameras, so I can see if it's a clearly mistake or not. I have when is 6 frames and I can check them frame by frame to see if it's a clear track limit or not. And after I make the report to the race director.
You mentioned different categories share the same racetracks at different times of the year. How do you go about, in that set of homologation rules, how do you go about catering for all those different categories?
Well, we have to follow the specificities of the category. For example, for truck racing, we are going to use bollards so that the drivers who are sitting in a very different position have a visual reference. For touring car, for example, we will use some tire packs, something we will never do for a single-seater. And then I mentioned Formula E. Formula E is mainly street circuits. That's our easiest management. We've got a wall, and the wall is the best thing to control the track limit.
And in terms of policing it then, if a driver were to go over the white line and you can clearly see that, if you have had a violation, what are the penalties and are they consistent across all championships?
Well, they will change from one championship to the other, but usually there are some jokers that are given to the drivers, then there is a warning flag, and then there is ultimately a penalty. So depending on the series, depending on what the race director is going to tell the drivers during the driver's briefing, it might change from one category to the other. But ultimately, if you abuse track limit, you'll get a penalty.
Well, I've certainly been on the receiving end myself a few times for track limits excursions, but it's nice to know that there's that level of detail there now when the stewards are looking into who's gone off over the white line. The technology is in place and it's improving all the time, and the drivers have that real world challenge now as well with the gravel there in place, which I really like to see. If you want to see more of this kind of content, check out the FIA YouTube channel and be across their social media content as well.